Okay, so I've been getting more and more requests to do a real-time streaming example. In a lot of the videos I've done so far, for instance, the backtrader videos, we test our algorithm against historical data. So we're doing back testing against, let's say, a snapshot of data from old S&P 500 data for the last 20 years. But a lot of you want to build like a day trading bot, for instance. And to do that, you need to actually be ingesting real-time data as the stock market prices change. And so what I wanted to do in this video is go ahead and start introducing a series on real-time streaming data with WebSockets and making trades based on that streaming data. So to get started, first we need to find a data source for real-time data. And so if you'll notice, I'm going to use, for my first example, polygon.io, because Alpaca, who I already have an API key with, actually looks like they have some kind of partnership or connection to Polygon.io, where you can use your Alpaca API key to get streaming WebSocket data from Polygon. So I'm going to try that out here and see if we can get some real-time quote data and trade data from Polygon.io. So if you go to Polygon.io, under documentation, there's a WebSocket docs, and this shows you how to use their streaming data API. And you'll notice they, in their example, use this utility called wscat. So this is a command line utility that lets you connect to WebSockets, and it's a Node.js package. So to get this command line utility, you're going to want to make sure you install Node.js and NPM. So NPM is just the Node package manager. Most web developers have run into this before, but essentially lets you run JavaScript programs from the command line. And so make sure you install Node.js and NPM. And then once you do that, you should have the Node package manager. And so if you look for wscat, there's a GitHub repository. And all you need to do is do npm install-g wscat. So I'm going to do that. So if you have npm installed, it should just run and install that package. I already have it installed, and now if I type wscat, you'll see I have these command line options here. So what we want to do is connect to Polygon.io's WebSocket, and so what we do is we take this cluster here. So they have a bunch of different addresses or sockets you can connect to. So they have stocks, Forex, and crypto, and we might look at crypto at some point in the future. But I'm interested in stocks right now, and so I'll copy this address here, and then you'll see one of the parameters is -c for connect. So I'll type wscat-c, and then the address. And you see it actually connects and then responds with a message. So status connected, and it tells me I connected successfully. So to interact with this WebSocket, we need to just publish JSON messages, and it'll send us a message back. So we just need to give it a command and tell it what to do. And so the command we want here is we want to subscribe to a channel for a particular stock. But they're not just going to let anyone do that. They want you to authenticate first. So you see they have this JSON payload here called action, and then you can say you want to authenticate. So I'm going to copy this to my text editor here, and we're going to want to send it some parameters. And the parameter we want to send is Alpaca actually has this relationship with Polygon.io where I can use my API key here. And so I'm just going to pass my API key in as a parameter, and then I can just send this message to Polygon.io. So I'm going to paste this in, and then you'll see it says authentication failed. So why did my authentication fail? Well, that's because I connected to this WebSocket, which is socket.polygon.io/stocks. There's actually, to use Alpaca API keys, they actually provide a separate address, which is alpaca.socket.polygon.io. So now if I use this instead, so I'm going to connect to this one. So I'm going to get out of there. And now I'm going to wscat connect to Alpaca socket Polygon.io, and then I send it my authentication. And so I'll do that. Paste this in, and I got invalid JSON. Oh, because I didn't copy it correctly. So I'm going to copy, and now it says auth success and authenticated. And so now that I'm authenticated, I just send it a message that I want to subscribe to a particular channel. And when you subscribe to a particular channel, data just starts coming through to that subscription, just like publish and subscribe in any other system. I often describe it as like a radio frequency, like you tune into a certain radio station, and then you just start getting all the noise from there. So we're actually going to subscribe to the quotes channel for a particular stock. And so if we want to subscribe to Microsoft stock, we just subscribe to this channel. So I can do trades or quotes. I'll do quotes. So that'll be q.msft and the action to subscribe. And I just paste this in my console. And you see our terminal starts filling with tons of data. And you can see Microsoft, the ticker coming in. So that's working. And you should see a bunch of prices. So you see like 187.29, which is Microsoft price. And then there's a bunch of other data here. And I haven't even used this before. This is my first time. So I'm going to study this a little bit more and then try to build a straight trading strategy on top of that. I just wanted to connect and show you how to do that. So now we have a streaming source of data. So I'm not going to want to use wscat. I'm actually going to use Python since we use that in our other examples. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to connect to the WebSockets in Python and subscribe to messages that way. That way we can use our Python libraries and execute those. So I started a new script here, and it's called stream.py, and I'm going to delete that. And I tested this a minute ago, and I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. So the first thing you need is a WebSocket client for Python. And so if you type WebSocket client Python, you Google that, you run into this WebSocket client in GitHub. And so to do that, to get this package, you want to install it with pip install WebSocket-client. And so if I go to my terminal here and I type pip install WebSocket client, you should see this get installed. I already have it, and so it's installed. So now once I have it, I can just import WebSocket. And I also want to deal with JSON data, so I'm going to import the main JSON package for Python. And then I'm also going to, I place my config, my keys and tickers in a config file here, because I'm going to change this later. I'm going to delete this paper trading API key and generate a new one. So I'll show it to you on the video, and that's fine. So I'm going to do from config import star, and that'll just import those variables into the script so that I can pass my API key. Okay. And so the first thing I'll do is connect to the socket. So I'm going to create a new variable called socket, and that'll just have my address that I just connected to, alpaca.socket.polygon.io/stocks. And then I just create my new WebSocket client. So it'll be WebSocket and then I call it WebSocket app. And what this lets you do is connect to a socket. And then also it lets you define a number of callback parameters. So you see there's on message, on error, on close. And then there's also an on open. So you can define functions that are called when the WebSocket connection is open, a function that's called every time the WebSocket sends a message back, and then an error and then an on close event. So what we're going to do is on open, we're going to want to authenticate against this WebSocket. So we'll send our authentication request. And then on message, we'll get all of these streaming messages. And so in our on message, that's where we can put some logic to like parse this streaming data and maybe take some action based on that event. So these are just different events that get fired and functions that we can define to execute when these events get fired. So the first one I'll do is on open. And then I'll do on open equals on open. And then on open here will be just an on open function that I define. So I'll do on open, and then my on open will have each of these callbacks receives a couple of parameters. So what it actually receives is the WebSocket itself. So I'm going to just print opened right here just to make sure we see that it successfully calls this. And then we just need to do ws.run forever, and that'll just keep running the WebSocket connection. So I'll type Python 3 stream.py and see if that works. And so you see we get this opened, and it's just waiting for something to happen. And I said run forever, so it just keeps running. So on open, we want to actually authenticate. And so what I'm going to do is create a new dictionary called auth data. And it's going to look just like this payload we used earlier, where the action is auth. So we have a dictionary, and we'll convert this to JSON with json.dumps. So action will be auth, and then params will be our API key that we imported from our config. And so that'll be our auth data in this function. And then we just want to actually send this. So we'll do ws.send, right? And then we'll send our auth data. So this needs to be actual JSON. Right now it's still a Python dictionary. So we'll do json.dumps, and then we'll do auth data. And we do that, we should receive a message from the stream, but we don't yet have a way of processing the messages we receive. So what I'm going to do is add another callback called onMessage, and then that's going to fire whatever function we have called onMessage. So I'll define a function called onMessage. Okay, and onMessage actually receives the WebSocket, and it also receives the message that we got. So I'm going to just print out the message that we received. So print received a message, and then we're going to print the actual message. So let's see if that works. So I called it python stream.py. We opened the connection, and then we got a message, right? That's the first thing, received a message, and it says connected successfully. And we've received another message that says authenticated, because our onOpen fired with the appropriate authentication action. So now we have an authenticated WebSocket in Python, which is great. So now all we have to do is define our the channels that we want to subscribe to. And so we did that earlier. So I'm going to stop this, and then we're going to define we're going to send one more message to subscribe to the stream, just like we did previously in wscat. So on open, we're also going to do another message. So we'll do channel data. So this will be our subscribe. And so we'll do action, and then the action is subscribe. So we're subscribing to a channel. And our parameters are just going to be a list of tickers that we want to subscribe to. So in my config here, I put quotes for Apple and Microsoft. So I'll do tickers here, and then we can replace that later. And then we just send another message. So just sending regular JSON with channel data. And so we should send a subscription request, and then we should receive messages because we already have our messages in this onMessage handler. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to run it again. We're authenticating, and then we sent our subscription to Microsoft and Apple, and you see our Python script is receiving tons of data. And now that we have these messages, we can start parsing these messages and placing trades or taking action or charting them in real time or whatever we want to do. We can write Python code to interact with this real-time data feed. So that's it for now. There's one more method called onClose that we can write real quick. So I'll do onClose equals onClose. And then this will just be like a quick method to say close connection. And just to clean that up, we'll do that. And then we'll run this one more time, right? And then if I stop it, you'll notice we get a printout saying close connection. And so we can print we can take any other action we want to whenever we close the connection. Maybe we want to log this session to a database or do something else interesting with this. All right, so that's it for now. I just wanted to show you how to connect to WebSockets from both wscat, which is a Node.js package, and how to actually create a WebSocket client app with Python. And then in the next video in the series, I'm going to work on trying to process this real-time data and place some trades or take some action based on this real-time data. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and stay tuned for another video.